Okay, so now we've got everything in, everything's set up, working properly with no issues. So what we're going to look at now is compressing individual elements. So we've got everything separated. We now have 8 tracks altogether from the original 16 or 17. I'm happy with the way that things are working, so I'm going to look at compression on each stage. So we're going to do the kick in this particular part of the tutorial, and then we'll move on to the overall mastering of the actual track itself. So what I've done is I use the SSL from Waves, the compressor. Now basically what I'm doing with this is just checking. Now it's set at an overall level at this point because it's only just been opened up. Now with the kick drum, I look at this more for attack than really compression, because the kick drum I want to be quite, harsh and heavy and big. So that's what I've done. So I've got this on, and we'll show you exactly how it's working against the compressor just now. Okay, so we can see from the actual compressor itself, it's compressing quite heavily in and around the 4 mark here. Now I don't really want it to compress anymore, and how I do that is to change the threshold on it, so that's just tickling it and no more. Okay, so we can see there that it's just literally lifting above the 0 mark. It's then that I'll move on to the attack and release stage, because I want to get a real punch out of it. But I also want to make sure that the release is long enough so that the compression's actually doing its job. So we'll look at the attack now. Now all I do is really just turn the knob itself and just see which fits. I can hear it on my monitor. You may not hear it based on this, but this is just to give you an idea of how I've done it. So we'll just click on play and then choose the right setting for it. Okay, so I'm getting a fairly hefty kick sound because I've upped the attack. So it's allowing more of the attack portion through, so it's giving me a bigger thump. I'll then look at the release setting just to make sure that everything's getting through as it is. Usually I'll set this to auto, but we'll go through them again anyway and let you hear it against the compression itself. Now again, I'm getting a huge kick drum sound from that, and it's really, really big, and that's what I'm looking for. Next part I'll look at is the ratio. That's basically set now so that the input signal is exactly the same as the output signal. I might want to change that depending on the actual sound itself. As you'll notice there, as I went down to 2, the compression marker went higher, so it's offering me more compression at 2 than it is at 10. Now again, I said earlier that I just want the kick drum to tickle. Now there's certain things that you will want that to happen. Vocals, for example, you want to squash them together so that the low parts are as high as the high parts, as in volume rather than notes. Then what I'll do from there is have a look at my kick meter. So I'll just swap it across. Here I've got my kick bus here, and I've got my overall meter here. So if I press play, I can see that that's just coming in below 0 here. Now usually I try and max it out around here, so we use the makeup gain for that. So if I press play again, it's now just hitting that particular area. Now I'll do that for the majority of tracks. I won't compress a lot of them heavily. I'll just do it like this, so I've got my attack phase sorted out so that I'm getting a real punch. Especially the snare drum, it needs to have a huge attack so that it's punching every time it comes through, so you can really, really hear it. From there then, we take a look at the master bus. Now it has a spectrum on it at the moment. I'm now just going to move across into a different arrangement that I have here that will show us the mastering stage. Okay, so basically what I've done now is gone ahead, done all the compression to the tracks that I need to do them, frozen them off, done a final mix to make sure that everything's running. The majority of the mixing is done whenever we actually create the track itself. But majority of the time what I'll do is just do a final mix once the compression has gone on, because compression can change the height and volume of the sound, so we want them all to fit in properly and have no issues. Then what I'll do is I'll put it through a mastering chain. Normally outside of this tutorial itself I would use SoundForge specifically for that, but I wanted to show you exactly how I would go about doing it. Now as you can see, I've got a spectrum set up again here, so it will show me everything that's happening. But what I've done is I've set up an actual compression again. I'll just play the track so you can hear it going through that, okay? Now again, you can hear it's not tickling, it's not even doing anything as far as the threshold is concerned. But I've set the attack and the release and the ratio so that I'm getting the full sound through. So effectively all it's doing is compressing every single track together to make it gel as one. You don't want to go too heavy in this because we've already done some heavy compression across all of the tracks. Then from there I'll put it into this, which is the hybrid by Brainworks. Now this is basically a mix EQ. I actually use this quite a lot. I used the EQ8 originally to set everything up, but then change the settings in this. Now the best thing about this is whenever you're searching for actual frequencies to remove, if you click on one of the knobs, it'll actually remove the frequency, all of the other frequencies apart from the one that you're trying to change. So as you can see here, there is a removal of the bass because the bass is quite heavy on it. Now when I turn my speakers up, the bass still comes through properly, and when I listen to it in my subsystem in the next room, it still works properly. I also noticed that there was a spike in this area that I needed to get rid of, so I've just dropped it out slightly. Then from there, bearing in mind that's EQ in the entire track, it then goes through a limiter, and this is just a Waves one that I use, the L2. So if I press play, you'll see exactly how this is set up. Now if I put this near the beat, we'll see the limit actually happen. And you can see the limiting happening just in this here, so we can actually see exactly how much is actually happening. So it's only going down to about 3, which is just light. There's no major issues with that one. If it goes down to about here, then you might as well just start your mix all over again. Or else you're just not going to get a dynamic mix. And that's the most important thing, not the over limit. Because what's going to happen is if you're preparing tracks for clubs, you want people to be able to hear everything that happens. If you squash it all together, it just becomes a big massive wall of sound. But you can't pick all the individual elements out because nothing's pumping anymore, nothing's moving about anymore because it's all squashed together into one block. Also, you've got to remember that whenever you're playing your tracks in the clubs, they have a limiter too on their overall sound setup, and if it peaks above that, it'll cut it down and it'll actually ruin your mix if you've limited it too much. Now what I would always say is spend the money and get a mastering engineer to look after your mix for you once it's completed. If you're like me and don't have the money, then I'll do it myself, because I don't really play these out. I just send them off to people to play out and they come back and tell me exactly where to go from there. So that's effectively everything. That's how I created the track, how I put it all together, made all the sounds, did the final mix and mastering. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, hope you've got something out of it, and we'll be back with many more now that the new channel is up and going. Thanks very much. I've been Trixter2D for mtbm.net. Good luck.